Tracy Mallory, and welcome to my new podcast, Serious Conversations. I'm happy you're able to join us today, and I can assure you it's something you won't regret. Today, I have some life saving information that I want to share with you because at some point, unfortunately, we're all going to need it to either save someone else's life or the life may be your own. I recently found out that a good friend of mine had a traumatic experience that caused his heart to stop for at least 15 minutes. Me and Johnny got a chance to sit down and talk about what led up to this unforgettable night, and I wanted to share that conversation with you. We all can learn from the experience he went through, so when that moment hits our home, and at some point it will for most of us, we will have the knowledge and hopefully the training to save our lives or someone else's. So let's get to that conversation now. Ladies and gentlemen, the Johnny Davis story. And we have a gentleman in front of us right now. I'd like to welcome to the platform Johnny Davis. Johnny, I want to say I'm so excited and happy to have you here. Your story brought out so many emotions and all kind of different things that I had to have you here to do this podcast. So for those who don't know you at all, can you go into telling us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, your upbringing, etc.?
All right, awesome. Well, first, before I even start, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to share this time with you. You know, you and I, we go way back, and to actually have the opportunity to share my story with someone that I know is even more special. But I'm born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. I went to St. Mary's Elementary School. I graduated from Science High School. I don't know if you guys know what that is in Newark, but it's called Science Park now. And I grew up in Baxter Terrace Projects. So I don't know if any of you know where that is. For those of you that are watching this from all different parts of the world, you know, look up BT. Just Google it, all right? But I'm born and raised in Newark, New Jersey, and I have 5 other brothers and sisters. One is actually deceased. And yeah, so I'm just one of those individuals who grew up in a relatively close-knit family, I should say. We had no choice because it was 6 of us in a 2-bedroom apartment, so we were definitely very close. Even when we didn't want to be close. We had no choice. But yeah, for the most part, I was surrounded by the environment wasn't necessarily the best environment to grow up in, being in the project setting. And I was basically exposed to just about all of the other ills that people around the country, depending upon, and it does, I should say, it doesn't even depend on that. No matter where you are in the country, if you're coming from the inner city, there are some common ills that are plaguing our young brothers and sisters. You know, you're surrounded by drugs, you're surrounded by violence, you're surrounded by, you know, probably prostitution, gangs, and things of that nature. So we had all of those elements that we had to survive in that environment as well. But we also were surrounded by some really good people too, who was able to identify that light, that connected with the light in some of us and say, hey, you know what, I see something in you. I want to show you some other things. I want to connect you with some different people. I want to expose you to some other things so that you don't have to go down this dark pathway.
All right.
See your other friends and even some of your family members are going down that dark pathway. We're going to put you on a different pathway, introduce you to some people that can help elevate you and take you to the next level, because we see your light, we see your potential. We want to expound on that. We want to help you become the absolute best person that you can be. So I was fortunate enough, just by being in certain environments, even though I was in the midst of all of that chaos, if you will, I was able to connect with some really good people throughout my life that changed my trajectory and put me on a completely different pathway. And I was able to experience, you know, some really great things in my life growing up.
That's good stuff, Johnny. But I want to tell people I've known you a little bit over 20 years. You're in the same field that I was in terms of being a DJ. And you were a hell of a DJ, I might add. And ever since I've been around you, you always seem to be pretty fit. Like you was always in the gym. You know, you see people sometime and you ain't around them that much, but they always have that good fit. Their physique is always look like they're in the gym constantly. Were you a guy that visited your doctor once a year for physicals and all that kind of stuff?
Well, growing up, I did, because I played football. I played basketball in high school, and I actually went on into college, and I was playing intramural sports there. And I've always been the person that was in the gym. I started actually working out when I was around 12 years old, believe it or not. And so I caught the fitness bug early. So early on in my life, I would go and get my annual physicals and things of that nature. But as I got older, I kind of got away from that. Not because I didn't care about health anymore. It was just, I was doing everything that I was supposed to do in order for me to remain fit and healthy. So I worked out all the time since age 12. That carried throughout high school, playing sports, carried throughout college, playing sports. So I was always physically fit. I never abused my body with drugs and alcohol. I never abused my body with overeating and just eating a lot of fast foods and things that would actually cause more damage and harm to me. I was just never that kind of person. So me being the typical man, never saw the need really to even keep going to the doctor frequently because I wasn't sick. See, my mind, I was programmed, you go to the doctor when you are extremely sick. See, one of the things that I learned from growing up in the projects, and by the way, we grew up in a single family household for the most part. My mom raised us on natural herbs, natural remedies. I tell her all the time, Mama, you missed your calling. You should have been a naturopathic doctor, right? Because she's one of those individuals that will study all types of home remedies and all types of herbs. And she can tell you what herb is good for this and that and the third. So we were growing up, in order for us to go to the doctor, we had to have our legs severed at the knee. So other than that, we didn't go. So that programming from when I was young, don't go to the doctor. Whatever is troubling you, whatever your issue is, try to find a solution yourself. There's a natural remedy for it. And so that carried with me into my adult years. And later on in life, when I should have really went to the doctor because I was experiencing something a little bit more serious, that old programming kicked back in, so it was just one of those situations where I grew up with that programming of take care of it yourself.
I think we all can relate to that. We all been through that same thing, I remember times where I would have a toothache. I didn't have no the family we came up, it was 13 of us, 8 brothers, 5 sisters. So, it was a struggle growing up in the projects in a 3-bedroom apartment. And if you had a toothache, I don't know if you remember, they were called BC. It was a powdered pain reliever, and you would take that and drink some water and go on to bed, and that's just how it was. But I'm sure that a lot of people could relate to that. But we're going to touch on a few things with your story. We're going to jump right into it. Like in the spring of 2005, I believe you was in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is your home now. And by the end of that year, maybe a couple of weeks after Thanksgiving, that I read, you went on an executive retreat that was in Florida through your job. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So at the end of November, I had gone to this executive retreat in Destin, Florida, and we had a wonderful time. Got there and, we were participating in all the festivities and things. And one of the things that we did, we actually were playing football on the beach. And I love playing football, right? So I'm in my early 30s at this time. So we're playing. I noticed I'm running up and down the field, running up and down the beach. And I noticed I'm getting really tired, like really fast. And I'm like, why am I getting tired so quickly? I mean, I'm physically fit, even though I hadn't been like training for the Olympics or anything like that.
Right.
Running up and down the beach that I was doing, I wasn't doing anything too strenuous. I'm like, well, what's going on? But I just didn't really think more into it. I'm like, all right, well, maybe because I'm 33 or whatever, I'm getting out of shape and just kind of chalked it up as that. And so later on, after doing some deep sea fishing in the Gulf, we caught all this fish, all this grouper. And we took the grouper, we brought it to a local restaurant, and they prepared it different ways. They fried it, they sauteed it, like Forrest Gump. they sauteed it, they fricasseed it, they did everything to the fish. It was so good, it was really good. And so I ate a lot of it, right? And I normally don't overeat, but it was just so good I couldn't stop. It was like it was calling me. So I ate the fish, and I noticed that I started feeling like symptoms of indigestion, and so I just chalked it up as that. It seemed like everything got stuck here, right in the middle of my chest. Nothing would go down, and so all right, well, I obviously overate or what have you, so I didn't really think that much of it. And then the next morning, I actually went to the pharmacy and I got some over-the-counter medication, like some Rolaids and things of that nature, to kind of help with the indigestion. And as I was taking that stuff, I noticed that it just wasn't going away. It was just getting worse and worse and worse. And then when I
You say
finally
you took Rolaids?
Rolaids for gas, anything else, any antacid, anything like I could take to kind of like cause me to either, I don't know, use the bathroom
Mhm.
or pass gas, whatever it was, whatever that feeling was that was like lodged right here in my chest. I needed some relief from that.
So you don't usually overeat, but on this day, it was just something about the food, the way they cooked the fish that made you just keep eating and eating. So you assuming at this time it's just gas or maybe from overeating. Did you think it was anything more than that? Or because you went to the doctor, correct? You went to get some prescription or
Mean, I didn't go to the doctor, but I mean, it was just food. It was just fish. It
okay, right,
wasn't like I was eating like barrels of oil or anything like that to clog up my arteries. It was just fish.
right. Okay.
So, so I didn't chalk it up to be anything more than just gas or I just needed to go use the bathroom or whatever.
So how did you feel when you went home? When you got home, was you still feeling the same way, bloated or whatever?
When I got home, I was still feeling the same way, and I started to kind of get concerned because I'm like, this is a little bit more than something like gas. But I
Mhm,
didn't really want to entertain the idea of it really being more than that. So I
mhm,
kind of blocked it out because my old programming kind of kicked in of, well, whatever this is, don't go to the doctor. So
mhm.
I started going on WebMD and I started looking at things. And so I went and bought more over the counter stuff, more over the counter medication, to see if I could just flush it out that way. When I arrived home, I really started to kind of get concerned that it was something more than just that. But
Yeah.
I still hadn't made the decision to actually go to a doctor yet.
Okay. Now, how long did this last with you with this bloated feeling, or it started to get to the point where you was concerned that it may have been something else?
Oh, it lasted until the time I actually went to the hospital, right? And I know you want to, we'll get to that part, but it lasted for a good almost 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I was really suffering. I was really putting myself through this unnecessary suffering. If
Was
I
this before Christmas? I'm sorry.
This was before Christmas.
This was before Christmas. Okay. And you that time you went back home to see your mother.
I went back home
And,
to New
and
York.
how was it traveling? Because you still experienced, I mean, it lasted a couple of months. So how was it traveling?
Traveling was extremely difficult. This is when I knew something was really wrong. I couldn't carry my suitcase,
Mm.
and I was getting weak. Like when I say weak, I mean really weak. I was struggling to carry my suitcase. In fact,
Wow.
you know how when you go to the airport and you
Mhm.
see the older people, the senior citizens, or the people who can't really walk, they're on carts.
Yes.
I needed one of those just to help carry my bag. I couldn't carry my bag.
Wow.
And so I'm at a point right now where I'm struggling to carry my own bag. And
Mm.
something is really wrong. So now I'm scared. I'm scared, but at the same time, my old programming kicked in. Don't
Mhm,
go,
mhm.
it's
Okay.
I'm gonna figure it out. But when I got home, my mom immediately saw in my face that something was wrong. She could see it in my eyes that something wasn't right. Then I told her, Mom, I'm not feeling well. I'm not feeling well at all. I don't have the energy. I feel like everything is blocked in my chest, and I don't want any food. I'm not hungry. And my mom, she can, she's from the South. She can really, really cook. And I was really looking forward to spending the holidays there with my family and really
Mhm.
enjoying home Southern cooking. And I just didn't have an appetite for anything. And so once I told her what the issue was, you know what she did? She
What's
said,
that?
exactly what that is. I'm going to go into my book and we're going to get you some aloe vera gel,
Home remedies.
the home remedy. And you
Yeah.
take the aloe vera gel
Mhm.
and you just swallow it down and it'll open up whatever is in your chest and you're going to feel better tomorrow. So I did exactly that.
Wow.
You feel better. Not
So
at all.
What did you do on New Year's? Because that was still during Christmas time, but New Year's is around the corner. What did you do for New Year's? How were you feeling then?
Terrible.
Wow.
I
Wow.
I was feeling terrible. I mean, at this
Oh,
point, I really started to feel like I felt like every day a little like the life was leaving me.
wow.
I could feel my energy just decreasing day by day by day by day.
So how do you go from, okay, feeling like you overate with the fish, feeling bloated to thinking it maybe it's just gas, then going to get something over the counter like Rolaids or whatever that you took, um and then you going into a couple of months and now you say you feel like your life was leaving you? Explain that.
The symptoms of heart failure and the symptoms of someone who's having an ulcer, they're the same.
Mhm,
So you can't really tell the difference of like what's what until you actually go and get checked out by
mhm.
a physician who can accurately diagnose you with whatever the issue is. And so, unbeknownst to me, I had something serious that had happened even before I went to Destin, Florida. It was undetected, but I didn't know. So my
Right.
own logic is telling me that this is something that just didn't happen in November. This was something that happened prior to, but because I didn't go to the doctor, I wasn't getting checked out because I wasn't feeling any symptoms of anything, but it was still festering
Right.
nonetheless. That
Right.
it just over the course of time, unbeknownst to me, it just got worse and worse and worse. And then it was just
Okay.
little things that was just triggering these other symptoms to surface. But it wasn't something that just happened just like that.
Right. Okay, let's walk through this. January 7th. You're going through so much now. You finally made a decision to see a doctor. You went to an urgent care, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, now for me, considering how serious you felt your condition was, and it's only through God's grace that you still here, because it seemed like you went from a stage of just bloatness from feeling like you overate to gas to like a real serious condition that could be causing you concerns involving your life. So why urgent care? Because they only treat non-emergency conditions. Why not go to an ER if you're feeling that bad?
Well, number one, the old programming kicked back in.
Okay.
And I said to myself, even though I was feeling extremely terrible, I didn't feel like going to the emergency room was necessarily going to be the best option. So let me
Mhm,
see exactly what they'll do with the urgent care and
mhm,
see if they're able to at least diagnose me. And if it's something more serious, they'll tell me, okay, yeah, you have this going on. You need to go to the hospital.
mhm.
Not to mention that as an entrepreneur at that particular time, I was paying for all of my medical treatment, my medical care out of pocket. So it was
So you didn't
financially,
have no insurance?
I didn't have medical insurance at the time.
Okay, okay.
So I was paying everything out of pocket. So it was financially feasible for me to go
Mhm,
to urgent care versus just going to the emergency room and racking
mhm.
up thousands and thousands of dollars worth of
Wow.
bills. And so I took the urgent care route. And when I went there, they did a couple of tests
Mhm,
and they diagnosed me as having a peptic ulcer. And I said, well, I never had any issues with my stomach at all. And
mhm,
so he began to explain to me the symptoms that I was feeling was as a result of me having this peptic ulcer. There was a bacteria in my stomach called H. pylori that's just laying dormant, and everybody has that same bacteria,
mhm,
but for some people it's dormant, and for some people it's activated. And so they were like, "Well, in your case, it's activated." And
mhm,
so while you're feeling the symptoms of bloatedness and you're feeling like your energy is leaving you, you're extremely lethargic and you're feeling like everything is lodged in your chest. That's what happens. And I'm like, wow, okay, well, I'll take your word for it, doc, because you're the doctor. But I never ever in my life had any issues with my stomach. And so they gave me this concoction of all these different antibiotics to take. And so I started taking the the antibiotics and things. And on the 10th day, I was like, I can't take this anymore because my heart was fluttering. Like you could see my shirt moving just like this. And I remember
Wow.
my mother, I said, Mom, I've been taking this antibiotics the doctors prescribed for me, and it's not working. I feel even worse. And I feel like I'm gonna die. And she said, Don't take it. Don't stop taking it. Stop taking it. Just don't take it anymore. And so after that, I just stopped taking it. And I said, all right, now I need to see a specialist. And I made the decision to go see a gastroenterologist.
Wow, man, you really going through it a lot. But let me ask you a question. I know as we walking through these steps, you hadn't went to a doctor yet, and because of the way you were raised on home remedies and didn't believe in going to the doctor. But now, as we go deeper into it, how much of the fact that you didn't have medical insurance, had you had medical insurance, do you think you would have went to the doctor much earlier?
To be honest with you, I probably would have. I
Hmm.
probably would have
Okay.
because there was a time in my life when I was working in corporate America. I did have insurance, right? But I
All right.
never,
You
even
never.
then, I was healthy. I never went to the doctor.
You only went if you had a reason to go, and it had to be a serious reason.
Be a serious reason, right? So
Okay.
when I became an entrepreneur, I did not keep my medical benefits at the time.
Okay.
Everything was like, okay, out of pocket. I had to pay everything out of pocket. And I knew deep down inside, something was telling me that it was serious. And part of me just didn't want to know. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to confirm the worst. Even though I felt like I was dying, I didn't want the doctor to tell me you're dying or
Okay.
you need this or you need that. And it's going to cost you this exorbitant amount of money and resources. And I just couldn't accept that at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to hear that. So it's like one of those things. If I hear no evil, if I don't see you, you don't see me,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. I'm not, if I don't know, whatever I don't know won't hurt me. All of those ridiculous, stupid sayings. But
Mhm.
that was my logic at the time. And
Right. I understand.
it was all based in fear. It was all based in fear though. I was afraid more so than anything else to find out that something was more serious in terms of
Mhm.
what was wrong with me.
I'm hoping that people who are watching this, they're learning something from this because there are so many of us, and some people that I know personally that have situations going on that they're aware of, and some that they're not aware of, but they just don't like going to the doctor. And you could be walking around and have a serious condition and not know, and why wait until it get to the point where you're laid up in a hospital bed before you seek help. But I understand your reasons why, because I was the same way coming up. I Being honest, until I worked a job that wasn't until 1990 was the first time I had medical benefits. That was when I went and got a family physician. Up until then, it was whatever issue I had, I went and dealt with it over the counter. But let me get back to your story. After taking the medication that you got that was prescribed to you from a doctor at urgent care, it appeared it wasn't helping so much. Your mom told you don't take it no more. You went to see a gastroenterologist. How did that go?
Well, I went there, and after they completed their examination, they asked me a question. The doctor asked me a question. She said, have you had your heart checked out? I said, no, I haven't. And I said, why? She said, because your heart rate is really high,
Mm,
and your breathing is labored. Your breathing is off. You should go and get your heart checked out. And she sent me home with another concoction, but she really said, I don't think that your issue is in your stomach. I think you should really go and see a cardiologist. You need to go to the hospital. And so I
mm.
went home and I took her concoction. And after taking it for like a day or two, I felt somewhat better, but not really. And I took that concoction and I just threw it away. I'm not taking this either. So it's
Mm.
just nothing is working. And so I went home after that, and like I said, after taking that, I just sat around on my couch and just waited for something to happen. I didn't know
Yeah.
what something to happen was going to be, but whatever
Mhm.
it was, I knew that I wasn't going to take any more prescription medication.
But you still feared the unknown.
Terrified,
Yeah.
terrified.
So it's February now. You home, you're depressed, you're scared, you're feeling horrible, hopelessness, and you get a visit from a friend. Talk
Mhm.
to us about that.
Yeah. So a good friend of mine had come over because they knew I was sick. A lot of my colleagues from my business team, they knew I wasn't feeling well, but this one person was the only one who came over to actually physically check on
Mhm.
me. When they got there, they were like, "I'm taking you to the hospital," because I was sitting in my couch at the time. My feet and my ankles were swollen. After getting to the hospital, the doctors, they were trying to find a pulse. They were trying to find my veins. Everything was all bloated and I had so much edema, so much swelling in my hands and stuff. And they couldn't
Mhm.
find my veins. And they were like, after just doing some basic tests, just looking at my vital signs and everything, they were like, "Mr. Davis, whatever your problem is definitely not in your stomach. So we're going to keep you here for observation overnight, and we're going to
Mhm.
examine you to see exactly what the trouble really is." They were trying to find my veins and they couldn't find anything, and they were just my blood pressure was off, everything was off, all my vitals, everything was off. At that point, I just said, "Well, I totally surrendered." I'm like, "Well, I'm here in the hospital. Whatever you guys need to do, just go ahead and do it. Whatever's going to cost me, I don't care. I need to live. I just want to make sure that I'm going to be okay."
February 13th, your friend who took you to the hospital, she stayed with you the entire time that you was hospitalized till you went back home. Tell us when you got back home, what happened?
After being officially diagnosed with congestive heart failure, I had no idea what that was. And after
So I'm
being
sorry. Now we went from possible gas, bloatness from maybe overeating with the fish, and we went to see all these different doctors. One said it was an ulcer, and now we're talking about a heart condition now.
Yeah,
Wow. Go
it
ahead,
all,
continue.
linked back to the gastroenterologist. So the next day, once they admitted me to the hospital and they kept me for observation,
Mhm.
cardiologist came in there and he spoke in his very strong Hungarian accent. He said, "Mr. Davis, I don't know how to tell you this, but your heart is not functioning. It's functioning at a very low level." He gave me a demonstration. He said that a normal heart squeezes like this,
Mhm.
and your heart is doing this.
Wow.
He said, "So you have what's called congestive heart failure." And I said, "What is congestive heart failure?" He said, "Basically, your heart is not it's not pumping, and it's not squeezing any blood throughout your body, and so your organs and everything, all the swelling and the bloatedness and all the things that
Mhm.
the edema that's in your feet and your ankles, all of
Mhm.
those things happening to you, is because your heart's not functioning and your organs are shutting down.
Mm.
Right now, you qualify for a heart transplant, but because you're only 34 years old,
Mm.
um, and you're otherwise healthy, other than your heart being what it is. And he diagnosed me with idiopathic cardiomyopathy, which means that there's no known cause for why your heart is failing. So they couldn't even tell me why my heart was failing. And prior to that, there had been no recorded history of anybody in my family that had any type of heart issue
Mhm.
or diabetes, or I don't do drugs or alcohol, never been overweight. So the typical factors that would cause a person's heart to go into failure, I didn't meet that criteria. So I was a little dumbfounded when he gave me that diagnosis. And I'm like, how did this happen? And he could not explain to me how it happened. I'm just trying to process all this. I'm like, man, I just retired from corporate America. I'm only 34 years old. I'm not married. I don't have any children. You mean to tell me my life is over right now? So what does this mean for me? So my Newark upbringing kicked in, my survival instincts kicked in, my everything kicked in. It was like, all right,
Mm.
what? I was like, I got angry. I went from being afraid to angry because I didn't understand why this was happening to me right now. And I was just like,
Right.
what? F this. Whatever this is, I'm going to beat it. I'm going to beat it. So I hear what you're saying, Doc, I hear what you're saying. I qualify for a transplant and all of this, but you know what? Nah, I ain't going out like that. Whatever this is, I'm gonna beat it. So tell me, what do I need
So
to do?
you hadn't accepted that then.
I hadn't accepted it. I had not accepted the fact that this was my reality,
But
because
when did you know it was your reality? Because you hadn't accepted when the doctor is telling you.
it kicked in when I finally left the hospital. And when I went home the first time, to answer your question, I had a relapse. I had
Mm,
what's called separation anxiety. So when you're in the
mm,
same environment, you know everything is okay, you feel good, you're upbeat, everything is fantastic. As soon
mm,
as I got home and I was away from the hospital and I was out of the confines of being in that safe environment with the nurses and the doctors who were around me, and I had to be
mm,
home by myself, I panicked. I went and I started hyperventilating, and I
mm.
passed out, and I was transported back to the hospital via ambulance, admitted again. And so they were like, hey, you're going to have to really tough this out. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. But you're going to
So they're
have to,
telling you there's nothing that they can do. You have to, yeah.
there's
Wow.
nothing to do. I did it twice. I hyperventilated and I passed out twice. I went back to the emergency room and the doctor looked at me. He said, Johnny, you're really, really going to have to tough this out. Coming back to the ER, coming back via ambulance and spending nights in the hospital environment like this is not cheap. And you're going to have to figure out a way to kind of like just fight through it.
Man, so you back and forth to the hospital, back and forth, and it's nothing that they can do. And right now it seemed like your life is just all out of whack because you went from what appeared to be maybe a stomach ailment to a ulcer, and then now you're talking about heart failure, which you haven't accepted yet, but you're going back and forth to the hospital. They can't help you out. They're telling you need to go home and relax. You go home, you pass out, you're having anxiety attacks. Like, what is your emotional state at that time? You had to be pretty frustrated with what was going on. Could you speak to us about what was your mindset at that time?
My mindset was a wreck. I was
Mm,
afraid. I was angry and just bitter because
mm,
I didn't understand why this was happening to me. I thought maybe I was just being punished for some of the things I've done throughout my life. I'm just
mm,
now recalling things like, what did I do to deserve this? Why me? And I
mm,
realized I was asking myself the wrong questions. And so I had to ask myself different questions.
mm,
I was actually fighting depression because
mhm.
I'm spiraling into this dark abyss because I'm asking the wrong questions.
Right.
Why it's happened to me? It's really easy to start feeling sorry for yourself when you are sick. Like,
Right.
and no one else seems to be able to identify with what you're going through because they haven't experienced it. And the only thing that people are telling you is, well, I'm going to pray for you. I'll keep you in prayer and this and that and the third. And then if you need anything, let me know. But when you need them and you let them know, they're not available, right? So
Mm,
it's just things you learn that sometimes people just say things just to say them. But I'm afraid, I'm afraid more than anything else. And I'm spiraling into this dark hole. And I realize that I have to get myself out of this space, this mental and emotional space. And I had
mm,
some really good people at the time that I could reach out to. Now, mind you, I'm here in North Carolina pretty much by myself. I'm
mhm,
not married at the time. All my family, all my friends, everybody's still in New Jersey. So I'm calling people on the phone, and people that knew intimately like what was going on with me, you know,
mhm.
would talk to me. They would talk me off the ledge a lot. When I say
Yeah.
talk me off the ledge, I mean talk me off the ledge. Not that I
Mm.
was on the brink of, committing suicide or anything like that, but I had gotten
But you
to
was in a dark place.
I was in a dark, dark
Yeah.
place to the point where I can remember I'm sitting on my couch. I hadn't slept in 3 days
Mm,
because I was afraid to fall asleep. I was afraid
mm,
to fall asleep because I said to myself, if I go to sleep, I'm not going to wake up. In order for me to prevent myself from not waking up, I'm just not going to go to sleep. So I was sleep deprived. I was up literally for 3 days. to the point where I started hallucinating.
Mm,
Sitting on my couch, and I'm looking at what I describe to be as little demons, little imps, circling around my coffee table and
mm,
pointing at me, saying, "You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die." So I immediately take out my Bible and I start reading the book of Job.
mhm.
Reading the book of Job, the imps got even more intense, saying, "You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die." So I'm tripping. I'm tripping. And so in that very moment, I gave up. I said, and I just laid prostrate on the floor. I said, "Lord, this is my prayer. Lord, take me or heal me.
Wow.
I'm done. I totally surrender. I give up."
Okay.
I just knew that I couldn't take it anymore.
Okay, Johnny, you're pretty much tired of fighting emotionally, physically, in your mind, you're giving up. Take us from that point where you're laying on the ground and you're saying, "That's it. I can't do this no more."
Yeah. So I'm lying on the floor and I'm like, that was it. That was my prayer. I'm done. Take me or heal me. And I
Mm,
fell asleep there that night, right in that same position. When I got up the next morning, I felt like a little weight had been lifted off of me. Like the load had gotten a little bit lighter. And then each day after that, I started to feel better and better and better. I started
mm,
trending in the right direction. I'm going
mhm.
to the doctor regularly, getting scheduled checkups and things of that nature. They monitor me really closely because of the severity of my cardiomyopathy. And they noticed me making progression every day.
So you
And
saying you was getting better. Was that from taking some prescribed medication or
no, that was a combination of everything. My mindset
mhm,
shift,
mhm,
the medication that I was taking.
mhm.
I started to do some exercise by just like walking in my neighborhood, just just getting used to doing longer walks because there was a time when I
Okay,
could walk 100 feet. And eventually, I started to go back to the gym, and
okay,
eventually I started working out again, and I was lifting weights and things of that nature. So my ejection fraction, and by the way, the ejection fraction is the measurement of how much blood is squeezing through your heart. So a normal ejection fraction is 55 to 70%. And when I was diagnosed with heart failure, I was at 8%. Remember the demonstration I did,
right, yes,
right?
yeah,
My ejection fraction got as high as 39%, which is still in the heart failure range.
mhm,
However, for
mhm,
me at that time, I was functional and I was asymptomatic. I didn't have any more symptoms. I didn't have any swelling in my ankles, my feet, or anything like that. My liver had gone down. Like everything, all of my vitals had returned back to normal, but I was still in that heart failure range. And so 2010, life is fantastic. I reconnect with my wife now. We get
mhm.
married November 12th of 2010. And
Okay,
life is good. And so I'm trending in the right direction. Everything is great. My health is improved. My business is getting back on track. Everything that was kind of like in shambles is now starting to come back together. The pieces are starting
okay,
to come back together. So the outlook is looking really good now.
that's good, yeah.
And then,
Did you share with her your battle that you was going through with the heart?
oh yeah, she knew full well. She
Okay,
knew full well what was happening with me.
okay,
But she was determined. She said, "Listen, I know you because I actually met my wife in 2003. We've known each other for 20 years. Well,
okay,
over 20 years now. And she was there. She was in the battle with me. Like, look,
okay,
whatever you're dealing with, we're going to deal with it together. I know
right,
you. I know you're a fighter. I
mhm,
believe you. You're
mhm,
strong. And so, whatever this is, we're going to fight through it together." So she knew
right,
full well when she married me what was happening, what was going on with me health wise. And so life was great. The one thing that transpired though, I go to the doctor in November of 2012. I wanted to get my echocardiogram results because remember, I'm going to the doctor now every 6 months,
mhm,
checkups and so on and so forth. I had just left the gym. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling fantastic. I'm feeling strong. I get to the gym and my cardiologist says to me, had this look on his face. And I said, "Oh, I remember that look from before." not from
Mm.
him, from another doctor. They all
Right.
do that. Look, when they have bad news, they all have this look, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I recognized the look, and he says, "Hey, Mr. Davis, I don't know how to tell you this." I said, "Tell me what?" He said, "Your ejection fraction decreased. Went from 39% down to 25%." Like 25%? How is that? I feel fantastic. I just left the
Right.
gym. I'm feeling
Mhm.
strong.
Right. Right.
I have nothing going on with me. He said, because you're in such good shape and you have been taking care of your body all those years, he said, that's why you're asymptomatic. He said, you're functioning on fumes right now.
Mm. Mhm.
And so here's the situation. You need to have a defibrillator pacemaker. It's called an ICD, right?
Mm.
You need to
Mhm.
have these implants in your chest as soon as possible. He said, because if you don't, you can go into sudden cardiac arrest. You can be at
Mm.
a red light and you can just go into cardiac arrest at a red light, or you can go to sleep and just never wake up. But he said, we have a problem. I said, what's the problem? He said, because you're 40 years old and you're asymptomatic, your insurance company won't pay for it. See, now I have insurance, right?
Wow. Right.
Insurance company won't pay for it. I said, why is that? He said, because of your age and you're
Right.
asymptomatic. He said, now you can appeal it, but by the time they go through their appeals process, everything gets reviewed or what have you, you can go into
Mhm.
sudden cardiac arrest. I said, so what are my options? He said, well, you don't really have any options. You really need to have this device implanted in your chest. If you don't, there will be a tragedy in your household. And I don't want to see this happen to you because I've
Right.
been a cardiologist. I think at that time, he said, I've been a cardiologist for 12 years. And I've seen this happen time and time again. And I don't want to see it happen to you. I said, okay. My wife was with me. She saw me. She heard with her own ears. So I said, okay, how much does it cost? If I were to pay for this on my own, how much is it going to cost me? He said, it's going to cost you about the same amount of money as a luxury vehicle.
Mm.
It's not including the doctor's fees, the hospital charges, the labs, everything that goes into this surgical procedure to have this device implanted in your chest. So you're looking at well over 6 figures to have this done.
Mm.
Time
Wow.
I have an extra 6 figures just lying in my bank account to pay for heart surgery when I had health insurance to cover it. Okay.
So the health insurance wouldn't cover it because they considered it a pre-existing condition, probably, correct?
Well, no, I mean, I've had the coverage now for a couple of years, so
Mhm.
it wouldn't have been considered a pre-existing.
Okay.
But
Okay.
they just wouldn't cover it because of my age, because I was 40 years old and I was asymptomatic. If you walked in here and you were, had no energy, you were totally lethargic. If you were in a wheelchair, so on and so forth, I can make an argument to state that you
Mm.
have this device, but because you're coming in here and you're more physically fit than me, I can't make an argument for that.
Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Was it ever explained to you because you got 6 years gone by and you said your health was getting a lot better, you were actively doing things again,
Mhm.
was it ever explained to you what changed? What made everything start going in reverse?
No, that's the thing. See, that's the tricky thing about this particular disease. You have good days or good months, and then you have bad days and you have bad months. And sometimes you
Mm.
can feel it, and sometimes you can't feel it. That's why heart disease is considered the silent killer,
Mhm.
because you can have these things going on internally and you're totally unaware. Remember, I was back at the gym working out,
Right.
I'm walking. I can't feel that my ejection fraction decreased by 14%. It
Mm.
can only be detected with an actual echocardiogram. There
So you
has to
could
be,
be feeling good for 2 years, and then all of a sudden, it
you're not,
wow.
yeah, you could be feeling great, not know that there's a decrease, and
Mm.
you're on your way out of here. A month goes by, my wife and I were planning for Christmas, and in fact, we were actually going through in vitro as well. So we had all the medication on the table for her to inject herself in her womb area so that we can do the process.
Mhm.
And so we decided we're talking about baby names and all that kind of stuff. And then just as my cardiologist, when I went and talked to him in November, when he said you can go into cardiac arrest, go to sleep Christmas Eve 2012, and the unthinkable occurred.
As we follow on Johnny's journey, we now know how devastating consequences can be from not making annual doctor visits and getting lab work at least once a year. Just because you feel good on the inside and may look good on the outside, it doesn't mean everything is good on the inside. Let's pick the story up by listening to Johnny Davis's wife, Rachel Davis, explain what happened as they slept in the middle of the night on Christmas Eve, 2012. And afterwards, Johnny will let us know how he made it through and how he's coping now.
Fateful night in December in 2012, maybe about a month after we saw the doctor, you went into sudden cardiac arrest.
Just like he said I would.
Just like he said, 3 o'clock in the morning. And you woke me up in the middle of the night. You grabbed me and you shook me. Unbeknownst to me, the shaking gesture were you actually having convulsion-like movements. And I was shaking you, saying, baby, wake up, wake up, wake up. You're having responded. And so I immediately jumped up, turned the lights on, and saw you laying in the bed having those convulsion-like seizures with your eyes rolling in the back of your chest. And from that moment on, I think my life, our lives forever changed, because it was on that night that I witnessed you take your last breath. After I administered CPR on you for 10 minutes, as I was screaming to the paramedics and the 911 operator that, please hurry, please hurry, please hurry, he's dying, please hurry. As I sat over you and gave you chest compressions, I felt my whole body seize because I could not stop. But at the same token, your breathing was becoming more and more labored. Your eyes stopped moving. Your body stopped moving. And you died. You died.
Diagnosed with congestive heart failure. I was 34 years old. I was very young, and it was just devastating to receive that news, because for me, I had never in my life been sick at all. I was always physically fit. I made it a point to work out all the time. There was no mention of anyone in my family that had any history of heart issues. I was not a big drinker. I've never smoked anything a day in my life. I've never used any illegal drugs. And so for me to be given a diagnosis like that, I was just completely blown away, because I had no idea why it happened, how it happened, where it came from, nothing. I was actually on an executive retreat in Destin, Florida with some of my colleagues, and we had done some deep sea fishing at the Gulf, and we caught all of this grouper. I had eaten so much of it, and that night I started to feel sick. I thought maybe I had eaten too much, and I started to feel symptoms of indigestion. I started feeling progressively worse. After I returned home to North Carolina, I finally went to the doctor after several weeks. I would say maybe almost a month or so later, I was actually officially diagnosed with idiopathic cardiomyopathy. Christmas Eve 2012, I went into sudden cardiac arrest with a healthy breakfast. And it usually,
From today's story, we now know, if we didn't, that if you haven't been trained in CPR, it's a must to take the course. You can actually go online and take the classes and learn CPR all within the same day, and practice it a couple of times a month with family members in your household. So if you ever had to perform CPR, it will be like second nature to you. By Johnny's wife having the training and knowing CPR and also understanding how to control emotions while under duress, then to call for help and immediately administer CPR, she played an important role in giving her husband a chance to survive. I admire her courage and I'm inspired by her actions. Because of her acting immediately, she's one of the reasons why Johnny is still here with us today. If everyone that's watching this learn and act on all that was put out there for you, thousands of lives will be saved. Thank you. Johnny, I did some research on the latest data from New York University Grossman School of Medicine in Long Island. And what shocked me was they said most people who experience cardiac arrest do not survive. Among those who do, there is a risk of neurologic dysfunction, brain injury, disorders of consciousness, neurocognitive deficits, changes in quality of life, physically as well as psychologically. Before I ask you to elaborate a little bit more on that and so that the viewers can learn a little bit more about, let me play this clip explaining the importance of why everyone in the home should own an AED.
Protecting family, friends, and loved ones from sudden cardiac arrest can be easier than you might think. Most people don't realize that individuals and non-medical professionals can own a home AED. Having an AED at home could potentially be the most significant variable in producing positive outcomes following cardiac arrest. The sooner an AED is used, the more likely it is to be successful. Every minute without defibrillation, a person loses 7 to 10% likelihood of being resuscitated. Having an AED at home means you can get it and use it at a moment's notice, so whether it's the neighbor mowing the lawn or grandma visiting, you can know the people around you are safer for the fact that you own an AED. Waiting for an ambulance to arrive eats up valuable minutes. Using an AED within the first minute of sudden cardiac arrest can mean the difference between life and death. Consider buying one. It might make all the difference in the world to you and those you love.
John, that was I actually learned a lot. I actually have one on order. I didn't have an AED in my house, but after going through doing research and knowing the importance of how it could save a family member's or anybody's life that go into cardiac arrest, whatever, I ordered one. So could you elaborate a little bit more, to the viewers, the importance of why everyone should have an AED in their home?
Absolutely. And let me just share this with you all too. Today, I'm a proud board member of the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Foundation. And I just want to give you some statistics that many of you probably are unaware of. Number one, 7 out of 10 sudden cardiac arrests that occur at home. So that's the main reason right there. 7 out of 10 that occur. Now, I'm thankful that when it happened to me, it happened at home. I'm thankful that my wife did not panic and she was able to understand exactly what was happening with me, that she immediately went into activity mode. She didn't run out of the house screaming, help, 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 my husband's having a heart attack. Help, 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 my husband's dying. She called 911 and they explained to her exactly what to do. And she went into CPR mode right away. And she continued to do so until the fireman came and took over from where she left off. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
2, 1 out of 10 people who suffer sudden cardiac arrest, 1 out of 10 survive. So that means 9 out of 10 people that will suffer sudden cardiac arrest will not survive.
Wow.
Simply because people don't know what to do when it comes to how to administer CPR, or they don't have access to an AED or an automated external defibrillator.
Right.
You have access to that, as the video so eloquently stated. For every minute that a person doesn't have access to an AED while they're suffering sudden cardiac arrest, their chances of survival decreases by 10%. So if you think about it, if you have no access to an AED over a period of 10 minutes, you're talking about certain death. Unless you're in a situation like myself or one of those very blessed and fortunate few to have survived that because my heart stopped for over 16 minutes. So I'm not supposed to be here right now. I am not supposed to be talking to you. I'm not supposed to be talking to anyone else because based on medical science and what transpired with me, I'm not supposed to be here because my wife worked on me, the firemen worked on me, and they worked on me and worked on me and worked on me until my heart started to beat again. But they did not know exactly what was going to happen because there was so much time that expired without me having any oxygen to my brain. So they were preparing my wife to be my caregiver while she was in the hospital because I didn't have a pulse or oxygen for 16 minutes. Okay. But what actually helped increase my chances of survival was the CPR. So when I didn't have a pulse, she was my pulse. They were my pulse. When I didn't have a heartbeat, they were my heartbeat. She was my heartbeat when I didn't have one. So there was also some divine intervention going on in here as well.
Yes, yes.
I'm not supposed to be alive today. So everybody played their role. Everybody played their part. And so if you're a bystander person, you're watching this right now. And if you understand that 7 out of 10 people that happen to experience sudden cardiac arrest, that will happen at home, that's more than enough reason for you to make sure that you have that AED.
Absolutely.
And 9 out of 10 people that suffer sudden cardiac arrest will not survive. 1,000 people per day die from sudden cardiac arrest. So that means you're watching this, whenever you're watching this right now, just know that 1,000 people today is going to die from sudden cardiac arrest. And 1,000 people is going to die tomorrow. 1,000 people are going to die the day after that and the day after that. And it's simply because people just don't know what to do. And here's another one for you. If you're African American, you're 40% less likely to receive CPR simply because people don't know what to do. And if you're lying on the ground at Target right now, you're a black man, you're a black woman, more than likely you're going to have somebody come and film you with their phone before they actually go and assist you and help you.
Wow, that's true.
And so more people need to understand how to identify when a person is actually in distress, when they're having CP, when they're suffering sudden cardiac arrest versus a heart attack, because they're not the same. A heart attack and sudden cardiac arrest, they are not the same. And most people are not able to tell the difference between the two. The AED is so important to have in your home because the AED is the only device that can detect whether a person's actually having a heart attack or if they are if they're having sudden cardiac arrest. See, a heart attack is a plumbing issue. There's a blockage, so the blood is not flowing and the pressure is building up. So when a person's having a heart attack, most likely you'll see them clutch their chest and they'll pass out. The heart is still beating, but the blood's not flowing through, and the pressure that's building up, that's causing that severe pain. And it feels like an elephant standing on their chest.
Right.
Okay. Now, a person is in sudden cardiac arrest. That's an electrical problem.
Right.
There's no blockage, but there's no electricity flowing. So the only device that can detect whether or not a person's actually having sudden cardiac arrest or if they're having a heart attack is an AED. So when you put patches on that person, the AED will do all the work. And if it does not detect an electrical current, it'll administer therapy. It'll administer shock. If it does detect electrical activity, like if a person is having a heart attack, it's not going to give that person a shock because it's detecting an electric current. So that is the reason why you definitely need to have an AED in your home.
Absolutely. Well said. You are supposed to be here right where you are because sometimes the devil has a plan, but God has another one. The devil's plan was to take you away from your family, but God had another plan that overrode his. So listen, man, you are so blessed to have gone through all of the turmoil and the trauma that you are. You are a blessed man, and I'm just happy that I'm sitting across from you, even though we're not in the same place. I'm honored that you came on the show, and shared this story with us. And before we get out of here, you met 10 years later Bill Betrayal. He was the fireman who did 300 chest compressions on you at the time, and you guys got a chance to meet and have a conversation. And I want to play that clip and show your guys' reunion.
I'm still here because of you and your hard work. Those 300 chest compressions that you did on me.
While asleep on Christmas Eve 2012, Johnny Davis started having a medical emergency. His wife called 911 and followed instructions to perform CPR, but it wasn't enough.
She witnessed me take my last breath in her hands and die, literally.
Even as first responders took over, his heart was stopped for more than 16 minutes. Bill Petraea was one of the first firefighters to arrive. Reuniting with Johnny after 10 years is emotional.
A lot of times you don't get to know what happened afterwards.
1,200 chest compressions and 6 shocks from an AED eventually brought Johnny back. Medic officials say in the end it was a picture-perfect call. A new mural in medic headquarters, a reminder of that.
Every aspect of the system that cares for our high acuity patients was really performing very high level that night.
As he closes out a decade of a second shot at life, Johnny knows who is responsible for what was his Christmas miracle.
I wouldn't be here without them. You know, every single person played a role in me being here today. It wasn't just one person. It was a textbook save.
I mean, what did that feel like, meeting the guy that he also played a key role along with your wife and all the other EMTs? He played a big role in you still being here right now.
Yeah, it was very special moment. And I can remember when I first got out of the hospital, I would say maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I got a chance to meet them.
Okay.
And they checked on me. And it was the weirdest thing. I never thought I would see them again. I didn't know who they were, but they came to see me. They wanted to know exactly what happened. And as a result, we kind of maintained a friendship over the years. And I hadn't seen those guys in a number of years. So it was really good to connect with Bill. There was some others that weren't present. Some of them are retired. One of them is retired now, Captain Dale Cuff, and the other two, they're working at different stations now. But here it is now. This December 25th will make 11 years. And for me to see that clip and to remember all those, I can't believe the time has flown by that quickly.
Yeah.
But it's just a blessing. It's just a tremendous blessing to still be here, to have that memory. And I'm just looking forward to being the biggest blessing going forward that I can be, and to, with this second chance at life, maximizing my humanity as much as I possibly can to help reach and touch and spread love and motivation and empowerment and hope around the country and around the world.
That's great stuff, man. I want to just say Johnny Davis, he wrote a book that I purchased and I read. It's called I'm Still Here, From Heart Failure to the Heart of a Champion. And after asking Johnny to share his story on this podcast, I had already read half of the book. I actually bought the book twice. Reason is I purchased it on Kindle Fire and was reading it on my tablet. But after a couple of weeks from the tablet, the bright lights from the tablet was starting to hurt my eyes. So I ordered the hardcover to finish. I want to tell you, you need to purchase this book. It was very informative. And Johnny can vouch for me. I learned so much from his story and his experience. And as I read the book, there were times I got upset, times I got emotional. There were times I called him on the phone and I had questions to why certain things took place the way that they did. I was able to connect to his story through some of my own personal experiences. And that made reading the book very enjoyable. I highly recommend you all to purchase this book. Johnny, job well done. Tell the viewers where they can get this book.
You can actually order the book directly from Amazon. You can go to Amazon.com and just type in I'm Still Here from Heart Failures or Heart of a Champion, Johnny Davis. Johnny spelled with an I-E, not a Y. And you'll see it right there. Or you can go to I'mStillHereTheBook.com and you can order directly from the website.
Well, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this segment of Serious Conversations. I hope this is the first of many more. And I also encourage you to all subscribe to this page. And Johnny, I want to just tell you, man, you're a walking miracle, man. To hear your story from the beginning to the end and the years that you had to deal with the uncertainty, the unknown, and something that everybody can learn from this is that, listen, go to a doctor. We all have been there, Johnny, where we just, if we feel fine, there's no need to go to the doctor. But you were walking around going through life for about almost 7 years with a serious condition and you had no idea. You know, so we need to go to the doctor and get our annual physicals and get your lab work done. And Johnny, your story is going to inspire millions of people. You're a walking miracle because you wasn't supposed to be here according to Satan, but God said, yes, he is. So thank you very much. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for doing this for me. You didn't have to do it, but when I read it, I said other people have to know this story because of the way it affected me. The impact it had on me as I was reading the book, I was going through it and I'm saying to myself, why the hell didn't he go to the doctor? Or why this or why that? And I called you on the phone and was asking you questions like, why, you know? So there's so much more to unpack that's here in this book that's so informative and so educational that we haven't covered. And in order for you to know from A to Z this man's walk, you have to purchase this book and read it. I'm telling you, I read it. It's a hell of a read. So thank you again, Johnny. Thank you. God bless you, man. Continue walking in faith and may God continue to bless you and your family.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and speak to your audience. It's been a true privilege and a pleasure.
Thank you. Take care. Be well. Thank you for joining Serious Conversations, and I want to wish you all a very happy, healthy, and prosperous new year.
Every day because I have to. Nobody cares about your pains, your struggles, your challenges, anything that you're going through. I don't do this for the loves and the likes. Who cares about loves and likes? This is about real life. I show up every day. I come here every day because I have to. My life, my health, everything depends on it. This is not a joke. It's not a game. At the end of the day, I'm responsible for my life. I'm responsible for my health. I'm responsible for me. Nobody else. No one else is going to show up for me. No one else is going to do it. And nobody else cares about anything. No one's going to care about you more than you. No one's going to care about your dreams more than you. No one's going to care about your health more than you. So show up